The silent expansion. The emergency session alarm echoed through the crystalline halls of the Galactic Union headquarters on Centauri Prime. Ambassador Zethkar's forearms trembled as he clutched the classified intelligence report that had just shattered 15 years of carefully maintained peace. The document's holographic display showed something impossible, something that should not exist. Humans were alive. Not just alive, but thriving. Captain Elena Vasquez stepped out of her stealth reconnaissance ship onto the landing platform of New Geneva Station, the crown jewel of the Phoenix Consortium's hidden empire. The artificial gravity hummed beneath her boots as she gazed out at the bustling trade hub that hadn't existed on any galactic map just months ago. Massive cargo haulers docked alongside sleek military vessels, their hulls bearing the distinctive Phoenix emblem that had become humanity's new symbol of rebirth. 15 years had passed since the Great Evacuation, when the Galactic Union had declared Earth a contaminated zone and forcibly relocated humanity to barren asteroid colonies on the galaxy's edge. The official record stated that humans had struggled for 3 years before succumbing to resource depletion and internal conflicts. The Union had written them off as another failed species, too aggressive and unpredictable to survive in civilized space. They had been wrong. Catastrophically wrong. Director Marcus Chen stood in the observation deck of his flagship, watching as the newest batch of refugees arrived from the Outer Rim. These weren't the broken, desperate humans the Union remembered. These were engineers, scientists, soldiers, and visionaries who had spent 15 years turning their exile into opportunity. Chen's weathered face showed the lines of hard decisions and harder victories. His gray hair was pulled back in a practical style, and his simple black uniform bore only the Phoenix insignia and his rank. The refugees' ships were marvels of human ingenuity. Cobbled together from salvaged alien technology and powered by fusion reactors that the Union had deemed too dangerous for human use, these vessels represented everything the galaxy had underestimated about human adaptability. Where other species saw junk, humans saw potential. Where others saw obstacles, humans saw puzzles to solve. Elena's comm unit chirped with an encrypted message from Union Intelligence Command. Her handler's voice was tense, barely controlled panic bleeding through the static. Agent Vasquez, confirm your status. Are the reports accurate? She looked around at the thriving station, at humans working alongside the few alien species who had chosen to join the consortium, rather than remain under Union control. Children played in the parks that shouldn't exist, their laughter echoing, off-walls built from materials that the Union had declared impossible to refine without their specialized equipment. Reports confirmed, Elena whispered into her comm. The Phoenix Consortium controls 3 full star systems. Population estimates suggest over 200 million humans across multiple worlds and stations. They have achieved complete technological independence. The silence on the other end stretched for long seconds. When her handler spoke again, his voice cracked slightly. That's impossible. Our models showed human extinction within 5 years. Our economic projections proved they couldn't sustain themselves without Union support systems. Elena watched, a group of human engineers installing a new quantum communications array, their movements efficient and confident. These weren't the desperate scavengers the Union expected. These were the inheritors of a species that had clawed its way back from the brink of extinction through sheer determination and innovative thinking. On the Union capital world, Ambassador Zethkar addressed the emergency council session. His species, the Veltar, were known for their logical approach to galactic politics, but logic seemed inadequate to explain what they were facing. The assembled representatives from dozens of species filled the amphitheater with worried chittering, concerned growls, and nervous energy discharges. The intelligence reports are clear, Zethkar announced, his translator struggling with the complexity of emotions in his voice. Humanity has not only survived but has established what can only be described as a shadow empire. 3 star systems, 17 major installations, and a military force of unknown capability. High Chancellor Mordak of the Hegemony slammed his armored fist against his speaking podium. This is unacceptable. We removed them from civilized space for the good of the galaxy. They were too violent, too unpredictable. If they have been building in secret, they must be planning something terrible. Zethkar's head tendrils swayed in disagreement. Initial surveillance suggests their expansion has been entirely defensive, in nature. They have not attacked Union assets or territories. However, they have been accepting refugees from our member worlds. The council chamber erupted in angry sounds. Species that had spent decades under Union protection were apparently choosing to join the human outcasts rather than remain in their carefully regulated paradise. It was a political nightmare that threatened the very foundation of galactic order. Back on New Geneva Station, Director Chen received word that the Union had finally discovered their existence. He stood in his private office, surrounded by holographic displays showing the thriving human colonies scattered across their reclaimed territory. Each world told a story of human resilience. New Earth, where massive terraforming engines had transformed a dead rock into fertile farmland. Haven, the industrial powerhouse where human factories produced technology that rivaled anything in Union space. And Sanctuary, the research world where humanity's greatest minds had unlocked secrets that the galaxy's older species had deemed impossible. Chen activated his personal communicator and sent a message to every human world, station, and ship in consortium space. My fellow humans, the galaxy knows we survived. For 15 years we have built in silence, grown in secret, and prepared for this moment. We are no longer the desperate refugees they cast aside. We are the Phoenix Consortium, and we have risen from the ashes of our exile stronger than they ever imagined possible. The response was immediate. Across human space, ships powered up, defense grids activated, and construction projects accelerated. Humanity had learned hard lessons during their years of exile. They had learned that the galaxy was not a kind place to the weak, and they had sworn never to be weak again. Elena found herself caught between two worlds as Union intelligence demanded more detailed reports. They wanted ship numbers, weapon specifications, strategic weaknesses they could exploit. But as she walked through the corridors of New Geneva Station, past schools where human children learned alongside young aliens who had chosen freedom over security, past laboratories where brilliant minds pushed the boundaries of known science, past training facilities where volunteers prepared to defend their hard-won independence, she realized that her loyalties had already shifted. The Phoenix Consortium represented something the Union had never offered: hope. Not the false promise of safety in exchange for submission, but the genuine possibility of growth, advancement, and self-determination. Humans had taken the worst the galaxy could throw at them and transformed it into strength. Chen's final transmission of the day went out to every human settlement, carried by quantum communicators that the Union insisted were beyond human comprehension. Tomorrow they will come with demands. They will want us to return to our cages to accept their version of civilization. But we are no longer the same species they exiled 15 years ago. We have evolved through necessity, grown through adversity, and united through shared purpose. Let them come. Let them see what humanity becomes when it refuses to surrender. As Elena prepared her final report to Union intelligence, she made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Instead of providing the intelligence her handlers demanded, she sent a single message: mission compromised. Going dark. Tell the Union that humanity sends its regards. The stage was set. The galaxy's most powerful alliance had just discovered that the species they had written off as evolutionary failures had secretly become a force capable of challenging their dominance. The Phoenix Consortium had spent 15 years preparing for this moment, and now the time for hiding was over. In the depths of space, human warships began moving toward their borders, their crews ready to defend everything they had built. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their numbers. It was their absolute refusal to accept defeat, even in the face of impossible odds. The reckoning: the Galactic Union's massive fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, like a swarm of metallic locusts. 500 warships, representing the combined might of 37 species, arranged themselves in perfect formation against the star field. Their hulls gleamed with the distinctive blue energy signatures of Union technology, weapons designed to pacify rebellious colonies and maintain galactic order. Admiral Sarah Cross stood on the bridge of the Phoenix flagship Resilience, her steel gray, eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the approaching armada. Unlike the pristine Union vessels, her ship bore the scars of 15 years of hard construction and harder choices. Its hull was a patchwork of salvaged alien metals and human innovation, but beneath the rough exterior lay weapons systems that would have made Union engineers weep with envy. "They brought everything they had," reported Commander Jackson Wells, Cross's tactical officer. His voice carried the calm professionalism of someone who had learned to fight impossible odds and find ways to win anyway. 5 dreadnoughts, 40 cruisers, and enough support vessels to glass a planet. Cross nodded, her weathered hands steady on the command console. She had earned her rank the hard way, leading desperate evacuation runs during Earth's final days and convoy protection missions through the lawless frontier. Every human under her command had stories like hers, tales of loss transformed into determination. "Signal our response fleet," she ordered. "It's time to show them what we've learned." The space around Kepler 442 shimmered as human vessels began decloaking. Not the ramshackle fleet the Union expected, but sleek warships that seemed to bend light around their hulls. Their designs combined human engineering principles with technology, salvaged from a dozen different species, creating something entirely new and utterly terrifying to those who remembered humans as technologically dependent refugees. Prime Minister Calthon of the Galactic Union transmitted from his flagship, his melodious voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. "Phoenix Consortium vessels, you are occupying systems designated as Union Protectorate space. Withdraw immediately and prepare for relocation to approved settlement zones." Admiral Cross's response came through every communication channel simultaneously, carried by quantum transmitters that shouldn't have existed in human hands. "Prime Minister, this is Admiral Sarah Cross of the Phoenix Consortium Defense Force. You seem to be confused about whose space you're entering. These systems were claimed and developed by human colonists over the past 15 years. We suggest you withdraw before this situation escalates." The Union fleet commanders exchanged worried glances. Humans weren't supposed to have quantum communications. They weren't supposed to have stealth technology. According to every model the Union possessed, they should have been extinct or barely surviving on emergency rations. Calthon's voice hardened with the authority of someone who had never been successfully challenged. "You have 30 minutes to comply with Union directives. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force." Cross smiled grimly. 30 minutes should be enough. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The Phoenix fleet didn't charge forward in a desperate assault or attempt to flee in terror. Instead, they simply vanished. Advanced stealth systems that combined human innovation with alien technology rendered them invisible to Union sensors, creating the terrifying impression that hundreds of warships had simply ceased to exist. "Where did they go?" demanded General Torvak from the Union fleet's second command vessel. His species had dominated space warfare for millennia, but suddenly, he felt like a primitive warrior facing ghosts. The answer came in the form of energy weapons that seemed to fire from empty space. Precisely targeted beams struck Union ships at their weakest points, disabling weapon systems and communications arrays without destroying the vessels entirely. The human fleet fought with surgical precision, demonstrating knowledge of Union, technology that should have been impossible for exiled refugees to possess. Colonel Jake Morrison led the ground assault on Haven Colony, the Union's attempt to capture human industrial facilities intact. His troops had trained for this moment for 15 years, preparing to defend the worlds they had built from scratch against enemies who saw them as property to be reclaimed. The Union's elite shock troops expected to face desperate colonists, armed with improvised weapons. Instead, they encountered defensive positions that had been engineered by people who understood exactly how Union military doctrine worked. Every approach was covered by overlapping fields of fire. Every natural choke point had been turned into a killing ground. Every building had been constructed with urban warfare in mind. Morrison crouched behind a barrier constructed from compressed asteroid ore, watching as Union soldiers struggled to advance through streets that seemed designed to channel them into predetermined positions. His communications equipment crackled with reports from across the colony. Human defenders weren't just holding their positions, they were systematically dismantling the Union assault with tactics that combined the best of human military thinking with hard-earned knowledge of how their enemies fought. "They're trying to flank through the industrial sector," reported Lieutenant Commander Torres from her position overlooking the main production facilities. "Same pattern they used on the Nexus Rebellion 5 years ago." Morrison smiled grimly. The Phoenix Consortium had spent 15 years studying every Union military action, learning from every conflict, and preparing for exactly this moment. Springtrap 7. Let them think they've found our weak point. The Union forces advanced into what appeared to be lightly defended factory complex, only to discover that the entire area was one massive ambush. Human engineers had spent months preparing the facility, turning industrial equipment into weapons and transforming maintenance tunnels into a maze of defensive positions. Back in space, Admiral Cross watched as her fleet systematically disabled Union vessels with minimal casualties on either side. This wasn't the desperate last stand the galaxy expected from doomed refugees. This was a calculated demonstration of power, designed to send a message that would resonate across every inhabited world. "Union fleet, this is your final warning," Cross transmitted. "Your vessels are outmatched, your troops are surrounded, and your political justification for this invasion is based on outdated assumptions about human capabilities. Withdraw now, or face the consequences." Prime Minister Kael'thon stared at his tactical displays in growing horror. His invincible fleet was being systematically dismantled by enemies who fought like they had been preparing for this exact battle for decades. Worse, reports from the ground assault suggested that human defenders were using Union military manuals against them, demonstrating intimate knowledge of tactics that were supposed to be classified. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just survived their exile. They had used 15 years of apparent weakness to study their enemies, learn their methods, and prepare for revenge. Every diplomatic contact, every intelligence report, every military action the Union had taken during the past decade and a half had been observed, analyzed, and incorporated into human strategic planning. Elena Vasquez, now openly serving as a Phoenix Consortium intelligence officer, transmitted from her position aboard New Geneva Station. "Prime Minister, you should know that your intelligence networks have been compromised for over a decade. Every secret you thought you were keeping, every plan you thought was secure, every weakness you tried to hide has been cataloged and prepared for. We know about your supply lines, your reinforcement schedules, and your contingency plans because we helped design some of them." The revelation sent shockwaves through the Union fleet. Their spy networks, their carefully maintained information security, their strategic advantages had all been illusions. The humans they had dismissed as technologically inferior had been conducting the most sophisticated intelligence operation in galactic history. Colonel Morrison's voice came through the communications array, calm and professional despite the chaos of urban warfare surrounding his position. "Ground forces neutralized. Enemy casualties minimal, but all Union objectives have been denied. They'll need medical support for their wounded, but they're no longer combat effective." Cross nodded, watching as the last Union vessels finally accepted the inevitable and powered down their weapons. "Signal all Phoenix forces. Mission accomplished. Begin prisoner processing and medical assistance for Union casualties." The aftermath was almost more shocking than the battle itself. Human medical teams rushed to assist wounded Union soldiers, providing care that exceeded galactic military standards. Human engineers worked alongside their former enemies to repair disabled vessels, demonstrating technology that made Union equipment look primitive by comparison. Prime Minister Kael'thon found himself in the humiliating position of accepting humanitarian aid from the species he had come to conquer. As Phoenix Consortium medical officers treated his wounded crew members with equipment that somehow functioned beyond known scientific principles, he began to understand the magnitude of his miscalculation. Director Marcus Chen's final transmission reached every inhabited world in Union space simultaneously, carried by communication networks that the Phoenix Consortium had been secretly building for over a decade. Citizens of the galaxy, today, marks the end of humanity's exile and the beginning of a new era. We have proven that the Phoenix Consortium is not a collection of refugees to be pitied or a rebel faction to be crushed. We are a sovereign power capable of defending our independence and extending our protection to others who seek freedom from oppression. The message continued, broadcast in every major galactic language and transmitted through channels that bypassed Union information controls. To those who choose cooperation over domination, we offer partnership. To those who prefer isolation, we offer respect for your boundaries. But to those who seek to impose their will on others through force, we offer this demonstration as a warning of what they will face. As Union ships limped away from the Kepler 442 system, their crews struggling to understand how completely they had been outmatched, the galaxy began to adjust to a new reality. Humanity had returned to galactic affairs not as supplicants seeking acceptance, but as a power capable of reshaping the balance of civilization itself. The Phoenix Consortium had risen from the ashes of Earth's destruction, and the galaxy would never be the same again.